And then, yeah. Welcome, Shabbat Shalom. We'll begin with Yedid Nefesh. Yedid Nefesh. Meshavtach Eretz Onav Yavotach Elohaya Ishtachaveh El Mohadah So Shabbat Shalom and welcome as we then take our moment to go into one of the earliest Shabbats of the year. We think about all that we accomplished, even as it feels like it's a little darker, colder, and rainier outside. That even if we're feeling a little less motivated, that we're still able to do a lot. And it's trying to take that moment to pause, to think about all that we've accomplished, as we then enter this Shabbat with a sense of gratitude and praise as we continue with L'chuna Ranena. L'chuna Ranena l'Adonai, Kaviyah l'Tzoyishenu. L'chuna Ranena l'Adonai, Kaviyah l'Tzoyishenu. Soishenu Mekana Kana Letoda Izmerot Naviado Mekana Kana Letoda Izmerot Naviado Next, we'll continue with Yismechu Hashamayim. Yismechu Hashamayim. Yismechu Hashamayim. Yismechu Hashamayim. V'tagel haaretz. Yismechu Hashamayim. Yismechu Hashamayim. Yismechu Hashamayim. V'tagel haaretz. Yirem hayam, yirem hayam, yirem hayam, omelah. Yirem hayam, yirem hayam, yirem hayam, omelah. So we'll continue with Romemu as we then lift our voices up in order to give thanks. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachachu v'hakodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachachu v'hakodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. So we'll rise as we continue with Psalm 29 as we reach that chaotic end of the week, being able to see everything start to come together as we then evoke this sort of image of the chaos at the end of, or I guess not chaos, but everything going from this sort of motion of coming into being to coming to a place of rest. So we'll evoke that as we continue with Psalm 29. Mizmor leDavid, Avu l'Adonai b'nevi, Avu l'Adonai kavod, Avu l'Adonai kavod shemo, Yishachavu l'Adonai hadat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod nirnim, Adonai al mayim ramim, Kol Adonai ba'akola, Kol Adonai lehadai, Kol Adonai shomer azim, v'shaber Adonai etazeh havanon, Vayakitam kemoega levanon, lesirion, kemo, ben remi, Kol Adonai poteh bavotesh, Kol Adonai yafir midbar, yafir Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yefol el hayadon, vayefeso ye'avon, ufechalo, kulo, omer chavo, Adonai lamahu yashav, Eshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai yos, v'yamo yitein, Adonai yevarech, kamo v'shalom. So we continue with L'chad Odiah. We welcome the sense of peace and calm that comes with Shabbat. L'chad Odiah v'ikatala השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה לך דודי כלכלה ונשמה נקבל לה לקראת שבת כפול ומרחק ממקום חברך בראש מקדם בסוף הסוף מעשה ומחשבה תחילה לך דודי כלכלה ונשמה נקבלה מקדש מלך ילדות חכולי צעיר מתוך הפך רבנה שווה בעמק הבחר הוא יחמוד עלי חמלה לך דודי לי כלכלה ונשמה נקבלה עיקרי והפגו מלבשי בגדי תפתח מעל יד בן אישה ותלך מקור ואל נפשי נפשי גאולה לך דודי לי כלכלה ונשמה נקבלה התעוררי כי בעורף קומי אורי 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 שידברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לי כלכלה ונשמה נקבלה. Sorry, 1 second. לא תבושי ולא תקרבי תשתוכחי ומתחמי ותכסו עניי עמי ונבנתה נראתי לה איי 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 לך דודי איי 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 לי כלכלה איי 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 ונשמה איי 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 נקבלה היהודים שיסה שוסייך ורחקו חומר עלייך יסיס עלייך אלוהייך ימסוס חתן הקלה איי 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 לך דודי איי 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 לי כלכלה איי 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 ונשמה איי 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 נקבלה ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תריצי על יד איש בן פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה איי 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 לך דודי איי 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 לי כלכלה איי 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 ונשמה איי 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 נקבלה. We rise and face our entrances. Holy ושלום עטרת עליו גם בשמחה ובתורה תוכן ולמוני הסגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה איי 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 לך דודי איי 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 לי כלכלה איי 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 ונשמה איי 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 נקבלה. We'll now continue with Shalom Rav, our prayer for peace. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Ki ata melech Adon Lechol HaShalom. Ki ata melech Adon Lechol HaShalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. Shabbat Shalom, thank you for joining. And so a few weeks ago, and I apologize that this is going to feel very irrelevant for a lot of us, that there was this sort of like big shakeup in sports media. That there was a reporter named Adrian Wojnarowski who retired from this very prominent role at ESPN. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because his role, when you describe it from the outside, was incredibly strange. That it was his job to essentially, be the first person to break all of these, stories about, trades of players playing for different teams, for the NBA, for professional basketball. But what was really strange about it, in a way that I still don't understand, what it exactly meant, is that, this wasn't news that was a secret. That rather it just seemed to be his role to essentially be the one to post it as a tweet or post it on social media a few hours before anyone else. And it seemed like after a while that it was the players and the agents themselves who would be telling him this news, and that for some reason there was just something about him being first that was able to make him, very prominent, and, but it's something that this news was always just the sort of fact of what was happening without any analysis of really what it meant. And his role really was just to be that person who was first. And as he talked about the reason why he was leaving, described how, he wasn't, able to go out to dinner and leave his phone off because he would quickly have to, send out a tweet if, a story was coming in, that even he had to keep his phone next to his shower. And that just the sort of pressure was too much. And it's really just strange because none of these stories, first, it's sports, so it doesn't, nothing about it is going to change anyone's life. But it was also weird in that it was stories that the team was going to announce later that afternoon. And that it was just this sense of being able to know it a few minutes early that made him so prominent. And so in some ways it's surprising that I think there is a part of human nature, that needs to know something as soon as possible. And, that having that information right away, even if it doesn't change how you're going to act, even if it doesn't change what the reality is going to be, makes it feel more important. And so we have a similar issue in our Torah reading this week. That this week we're reading Parshat Vayeshev, which is the beginning of the sort of story of Joseph, which takes up the last third of the book of Genesis, maybe a quarter of the book of Genesis. And we find Joseph after he's been sold to slavery, after he's been thrown into prison, after he's sort of risen to a position of leadership among the other prisoners. That he has these two servants of Pharaoh, the cupbearer and the baker, who have these strange dreams. And so they ask Joseph, is there anyone who can interpret him? And Joseph, suggests that perhaps God is able to give the solution to these dreams. And so Joseph hears the dreams and is able to give the interpretation. The interpretation is that, for the baker, having essentially this sort of stack of bread eaten by crows shows that he's going to be put to death in 3 days, while for the cupbearer, that in 3 days he's going to return to his service. And from what Joseph said, these two things came true. But it's a question, what exactly was Joseph's role? If these dreams were a prophecy of what was going to happen, they're going to happen anyway. And so perhaps it's the fact that Joseph was able to give that sense of certainty, that for the baker, even as it was the sad news, the tragic news, that he was going to be executed under, this despotic regime of Pharaoh, that it was able to give him that time to prepare, to find comfort within himself, and to be able to then face his death perhaps a little more confidently. Well, for the cupbearer, that I was able to go from this essentially endless darkness of the prison to having a sense of hope that there was going to be an end. And that Joseph was able to provide that hope, even if he wasn't the one bringing about that redemption. But there is some interpretations, that really imagine the way that perhaps Joseph, in giving the interpretation of the dream, was actually shaping the future. And that this is coming from a sort of line of thinking that describes how dreams don't mean anything until they're interpreted. And in the Talmud, when the rabbis describe this, they talk about this character named Bar Hadaya, who was this professional dream interpreter. But the dark side was that depending on how well you paid him, he either gave you a good interpretation or a bad interpretation. And it describes how two rabbis who are, often, rivals with each other while still being friends, Abaye and Rava, how Abaye would pay the fee correctly and Rava would always skimp a little bit. And so it would describe these instances where they had the exact same dream, and then going to Bar Hadaya, that his interpretation would push it in different directions. I'll just share two because they're a little funny. That they both had a dream, of a piece of lettuce, that they both saw a piece of lettuce, where for Abaye, who paid the fee, he said that essentially your wealth is going to grow and double like lettuce, because I guess they saw lettuce as being something that grew fast. While for Rava, he said that your wealth, that you're going to see a big financial loss, and it's going to be as bitter as a piece of lettuce. And so it was the way that the interpretation of the exact same image was either for good or for bad, and in the story, both turned out that way. I won't share the other one, it gets a little complicated, but you get the idea. Of course, in the end, as Bar Hadaya, used this power for, his own profit, and using it almost in a few instances that led to a lot of damage, we see that he was ultimately punished. And so, even as perhaps a dream or an idea or an interpretation is able to have that possibility of turning in two directions, it's worth recognizing that in doing so, of giving power to that interpretation, that really creates this impossible situation where it feels like, someone then is only allowing bad things to happen, out of a sense of spite. So rather, I think it makes sense to then see this story, at least in the Torah, as one where Joseph didn't have the power to change the situation. But we can imagine that his power as an interpreter was being able to change the reaction of seeing in some ways these dreams, these hints of prophecy of what was going to happen in the future, were the situation that he would have to act against, but by giving the interpretation, he was able to prepare the people around them to take advantage and to be able to act in the way that made the most sense. And so in the prison, it meant that the cupbearer was able to find hope, was able to wait for the 30 days until he was able to go back into the service of Pharaoh, while for the baker, even as the news was ultimately terrifying about his end, that it gave him that time to prepare. And later, when we see Joseph then stand before Pharaoh to interpret his dreams, we see that Joseph is then also the person who's able to then see that situation, to find a course of action that'll take that warning into a promise of success and preparation. And so when we look at the world around us, it's up for us to do the same. That sometimes we're able to have, forecasts, we're able to see trends go in a certain direction. And of course, as we are living in a very tumultuous and scary time, that many of these trends are scary, are ones that produce anxiety, that there is a lot to be worried about in the world. But I think that rather than sort of seeing that ability to imagine the future as bringing that curse, as Bar Hadaya did, that rather we can be like Joseph, to try to have that larger sense of understanding that no matter what the situation is, that when we're able to draw on the strength of our community, when we're able to draw on our inner strength of faith and hope, we're able to then find a better action. And so as we then get ready to celebrate Hanukkah this week, It's a reminder that as we are living during a very dark time, that it is up to us in order to bring that light of hope wherever we are. So with that, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. As we then think of bringing that sense of hope to difficult times, as we think of those who are ill, as we continue with our Mi Sheberach, our prayer for those who are in need of healing. Mi Sheberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Those in need of healing with the Refuah Shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. So as we are approaching Hanukkah, that is over this weekend. Let's see. Yes, it is this weekend, as we have the 20th day of Kislev. But this has long been a minor holiday among the Chabad Hasidim, as a day that commemorates a story of how the first Chabad Rebbe was arrested on very bizarre charges and was put in jail by the Russian government, but was ultimately released on this 20th day of Kislev. One that they then continued to celebrate as this day of redemption, one that became a day of celebration, but of course for the last year and a half for the Jewish community, that need for redemption is something that has taken on a different urgency as we think of the hostages who are continued to be held in Gaza. And so of course as we then approach the holiday or as we then remember this day as a day of redemption, we hope and pray that the hostages will soon come home in as good of health as possible, as we continue with our prayer Achenu, the idea that they'll be able to go from a place of captivity to freedom. Achenu kol Beit Yisrael, Achenu kol Beit Yisrael, הנתונים בצבא ובשוויון, העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. המקום ירחם עליהם ויוציאם מצרה ולאפל עליונה ישיבו תיגרו לחשתה בגלה וזמן פעמים. So this week in our Har El community, we are remembering Edward Sandberg, husband of Ellen Sandberg, Harold Malofsky, father of Abby Malofsky, Harold Silverman, friend of Raziel Gross, Sidney Golden, father of Neil Golden, Rachel Makoff, mother of Joel Makoff, Ben Furman, husband of Patricia Furman, Chaim Reitzik, father of Monty Reitzik, Bill Cohen, brother of Diane Jampolsky, and Kathy Kovach, grandmother of Susan Siklos. We pray that their memory may be for a blessing. We continue, evoking the end of Mourner's Kaddish with Osei Shalom. Osei Shalom Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Veimehu Amen. Yaseh Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael 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 Veimehu Wonderful. So Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for joining, either here on Zoom or watching on Facebook later. Our services tomorrow will be at 10 a.m. And after services, we'll have a Kiddush in the lounge, sponsored by Abby Malofsky, in memory of her father, Harold Malofsky. Also, if you still need to get any Hanukkah products, you can get that on Monday and Tuesday from about 9 to 3:30. Also on Sunday at 2 p.m. will be the rally at the Art Gallery for the call to release the hostages. And then, looking further ahead, next Friday, where the office is going to be closed on Wednesday and Thursday. Next Friday, December 27th at 6 p.m. will be our next in-person Friday night service with Shabbat dinner, and we'll be getting vegetarian Chinese food, to draw on the stereotype of what Jews eat around Christmas. And the sign-up for that will end Monday. And then on January 1st, the sort of office is closed, but we will be having the blood drive on January 1st. And so if you are able to give blood, come please do that. Looking further ahead, on Tuesday, January 7th at 10 p.m. will be the next challah bake for food security. So you'll bake 2 challahs, take one home, and leave the rest for Jewish family services. And on Saturday, January 11th at 5:30 p.m., we'll have a Havdalah and games night. So a chance to celebrate or to do the ceremony of Havdalah together, as well as a chance to gather with friends to play some games. And so I guess I'll share everything. So Wednesday, January 15th will be the next seniors lunch. That'll be Wednesday, January 15th at noon, where Jeffrey Haddad will be sharing from his book, I'm Not Back by Wednesday, when he made some poor choices and almost died as a high schooler in the dense Jamaican rainforest. So we'll conclude with our Kiddush and Challah, so we'll continue with our scriptures. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'atzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ratzon hinkilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim ki banu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha Be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We'll step aside to wash our hands. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.